The producer of San Andreas has hinted that they've got some ideas for a sequel. Curious about what those ideas might be? Well, stick around, because we've got all the details on the upcoming San Andreas movie. Plus, after 7 years in development, there's been an uncertain update on Dwayne Johnson's San Andreas 2. Let's dive into everything we know about the next installment. The producer of San Andreas recently hinted that they're brainstorming ideas for a sequel to the 2015 disaster flick. If you remember, the original movie starred Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as a heroic LAFD helicopter rescue pilot trying to save his family from a colossal earthquake that hits California. Directed by Brad Peyton, who also worked with The Rock on Rampage in 2018, the film also featured Carla Gugino, Alexandra Daddario, Ioan Gruffudd, Paul Giamatti, Archie Panjabi, and Kylie Minogue. San Andreas was a massive hit, coming in as the number 16 film worldwide for that year, pulling in nearly $500 million on a budget of $110 million. Even though a sequel was announced back in 2016 with the original cast and crew expected to return, there's been radio silence ever since. Alexandra Daddario recently shared that there was even a draft script at one point, but she hasn't heard from New Line Cinema about the project in a while. Apparently, the executive who first brought up the sequel has since left the company. However, there's still some buzz about a potential follow-up. Producer Hiram Garcia recently talked to Screen Rant and revealed that they're actively working on ideas for a sequel. According to Garcia, "We actually have ideas. We're working on something there on how we can continue that story." He went on to say that New Line and Warner Brothers have always been keen on making a sequel. Garcia mentioned that their goal is to take a different angle on the disaster genre, drawing inspiration from the likes of Roland Emmerich, who's known for his big-budget disaster movies like 2012, The Day After Tomorrow, Independence Day, Godzilla, and Moonfall. Garcia continued, "Disaster movies are so much fun, and that was such a great concept. Our friend Beau Flynn has come up with the idea of doing something based around a giant earthquake in the San Andreas Fault. New Line and Warner's have always wanted a sequel to that, so we've been working hard to figure out how we could crack something in that space." He also touched on the influence of Roland Emmerich's approach to disaster movies, saying, "There's something to just a big cataclysmic. I feel like Roland Emmerich is the master of that. He's the one who wants to destroy the world, but we'd like to try and take a couple of little pieces of it and see what we can blow up as well." The news about a San Andreas sequel gets even more intriguing with The Rock's recent comments. Just last week, he revealed that he's got an idea for San Andreas 2 floating around at his production company, 7 Bucks Productions. Although he didn't dive into specifics, he mentioned that the big hurdle in moving forward with the film has been scheduling conflicts. When the sequel was first announced back in 2016, the initial plot idea involved a dramatic eruption of the Ring of Fire in the Pacific Ocean, which would have taken the disaster to a whole new level. With such a high-stakes scenario, it makes sense that the filmmakers would want to get everything just right. Scheduling is definitely a major challenge, with so many high-profile actors involved in the original and The Rock himself being one of the busiest stars in Hollywood. It's no surprise that coordinating a sequel is tricky. This year alone, The Rock has been involved in several big projects, including Jungle Cruise, Red Notice, and the TV series Young Rock. Plus, he's got future commitments with major franchises like the DCEU's Black Adam. Even though he's not currently part of the Fast and Furious franchise, juggling a superhero contract and other projects makes it tough to find time for a sequel. Still, the fact that The Rock is personally invested in brainstorming ideas for the film is a positive sign. It means there's genuine interest in making San Andreas 2 happen, even if it's just a matter of finding the right time to fit it into everyone's busy schedules. If they can work out the timing, fans of the original disaster flick might finally get the sequel they've been waiting for. After almost a decade of development hell, San Andreas 2 has received another vague update from star Paul Giamatti. Speaking with Josh Horowitz on his Happy Sad Confused podcast, Giamatti shared that while he occasionally hears rumors about the sequel, nothing ever seems to materialize. He said, "It's been talked about, it's true. You're right though, and every now and then I hear somebody bring it up and they're like, eh. My agent will be like, but you know, San Andreas 2, they're talking about that. And I'll be like, really? Then nothing happens." The first San Andreas movie earned a lukewarm reception with a 49% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Despite this, the film's box office performance was strong enough to fuel interest in a sequel. The initial announcement included Dwayne Johnson returning to his lead role, but by 2021, producer Hiram Garcia noted that Johnson might not be able to reprise his role due to scheduling conflicts. This back and forth has left the status of San Andreas 2 in a state of uncertainty. Recent updates on the sequel suggest that while it hasn't been completely abandoned, it's clearly not a priority for the studio right now. With Johnson's potential exit and ongoing development delays, the chances of San Andreas 2 actually coming to fruition seem increasingly slim. On the Collider Ladies' Night podcast, Alexandra Daddario also gave an update on San Andreas 2, which has been on hold for years. While promoting her new projects, Daddario mentioned that a draft for the sequel had been written, but as far as she knows, it's not happening. Here's what she had to say. "It was mentioned to me several years ago when I went into New Line. I don't think that the executive that I was speaking to is there anymore, but they had a draft written. As far as I know, it's not happening. It's been a long time. I don't think so. I think it was in development at one point, I should say, but that happens in Hollywood all the time." As Daddario points out, it's pretty common for a sequel to get as far as drafting a script and then stall out. Sometimes these projects can linger for years or even decades before they might be revived as legacy sequels. For San Andreas 2, it seems a draft was completed but didn't spark enough interest from Warner Brothers and New Line to move forward. The cast quickly moved on to other projects. Dwayne Johnson, for example, starred in Central Intelligence, Fast and Furious 8, and Baywatch, the latter also featuring Daddario. Even if the sequel fans were hoping for doesn't materialize, Johnson has continued to deliver blockbusters like Disney's Jungle Cruise. Meanwhile, Daddario was keeping busy with Mayfair Witches Season 2 and the romantic crime thriller, which offer a mix of drama and comedy that might help fill the gap left by San Andreas 2. And that wraps up today's video. If you want to stay updated on all the latest movie news, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. By doing so, you'll stay in the loop with all our future updates. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about the possibility of San Andreas 2 ever coming to fruition? Do you think it will get a reboot, or is it destined to remain in development limbo? Remember, we're always open to your suggestions for future videos, so feel free to leave them in the comments below.